Hello, 4-year journey members. It's Bob Loukas. It is November the 6th, 2019, recording from New York today, and I hope you're all doing really well. This is yet another installment of the 4-year journey. It's been probably around 5 weeks since I did the last video. Some complained about the volume. Hopefully that has been corrected for you. Today I'm going to talk about the current position of the 4-year journey, looking at Bitcoin in its cycle. Where does it stand? Are we still on track? Any sort of concerns? Where are we wrong? Where is Bitcoin possibly heading? So those are the main topics I'm going to focus on to begin with, and we'll talk a little bit about the strategy, what to expect in 2020, how to go about executing towards that strategy, and then I'll get into some of the member questions that we have, in particular talking about exit strategy. That seemed to be the number one question I received from the feedback they asked from you. So that's the agenda for today. Let's get into it. Before I do, I'm not a financial advisor. Anything I say here is only for informational purposes, even though many of you will take it as probably a call to go and do something that I did not say you should do, and a call to be reckless. And that's just the nature of trading, I guess. People will interpret what they want and incorporate their own bias into what they hear. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that. So let's get started with the Bitcoin chart and what I'm seeing here on a weekly level. Clearly now I'm going to rehash some old ground for many of you, so please bear with me. Hopefully you want to hear some of this again. But if you do recall, the first video came out in December, right before the final decline. The call there was that we were heading into the very final stages of a 4-year cycle, and the decline and bear market here from the 2017 top was coming to an end, that we were in the final capitulation level. And the call essentially was that, yes, we may not be at the absolute lows in December, but we're getting very close. And from a price perspective, I think the price at the time was 3,700. From a price perspective, there really wasn't any reason at that point to try and get a lower price. The goal there was to get your position before the market turned and got away from you quickly. So obviously the low did come in December. That's been more than confirmed now. This 4-year cycle low is beyond any doubt, and that should be very clear. We have a brand new 4-year cycle in play, and that just, not surprisingly, we're already almost a year in from that video. It's just crazy how quickly time flies. And it also just illustrates that from an investor standpoint, time is your friend, and time does go by quicker than you think. And by exercising a little discipline, a little patience, getting your position, before you know it, as you can see here, we're already, 200 or so % up, even when Bitcoin is down still around 35 to 40% from the highs. The position from the 4-year cycle low is up almost 200%. And that just illustrates that you can try and trade all this and get chopped around and end up losing money perhaps. But for those that got in and just hodled and essentially said that I'm not better than the market, I can't trade a market like this, and held their position, and now in a very, very comfortable, strong hand position. And as an investor, that's where you want to be. You don't want to be at the mercy of the market and its swings. You want to be in a position where even a 45% drawdown, as we recently experienced, even though that's something that nobody wants to experience, by having a position that's in early and in profit, you are able to better weather a storm like that. So more on that to come, actually. But talking about the 4-year cycle, I think what we've had occurring here is surprising to almost everybody. It certainly surprised me to some extent. My expectation was that we would get a move up to this sort of $6,000 range, or $55,000, $6,000 range, right where it broke down before the final capitulation in December. My main expectation was that we were going to build a significant base here under this 6,000 level for a considerable amount of time and for a number of these 60-day cycles. And that was just based on pure experience from previous bull markets, one in Bitcoin and also in other asset classes. So really what I was thinking was that we kind of get back up to this 4,000 level, maybe bounce around a little bit and kind of do this for a considerable amount of time, and not possibly until around the summer months, even late summer months here, that we come up and test this area. That was 100% increase from the bottom. So that was a reasonable expectation. And then maybe even bounce off the bottom of this sort of resistance level here. So what was support before breaking down ends up sort of becoming some level of resistance on the way up. I think this is a popular type of idea as well once we were down in this area. And then I thought the idea was that we eventually break out of that. And when we break out of the $6,000 range, we can at least then begin to accelerate higher and get up to this sort of area where we are today by the end of 2019. Instead, what we saw was this massive candle here in April. And if you recall some of my videos, especially one of them in April, this here was a surprise at the time, but was also a clear sign that we were going to go higher quickly and much quicker. And I also put out a video saying, now is the time, if you haven't, to not mess around with price. Do not look for a lower price. Get in now because this market is starting to move. Now, even at that point, my expectation was not that in 12 weeks would be up to the $14,000 range. But my expectation was, or my theory was, that we should brace in a new bull market, in a new 4-year cycle, we should brace ourselves for any upside surprises because Bitcoin was going to provide upside surprises, if anything. The risk was that the market was going to get ahead of you to the upside. And that's why you needed that position. But if you look at the extent of this rally here and the steepness of this price action, it's very similar to the type of price action you see in the final stages of a parabolic advance. So this had all the characteristics of a parabolic-like advance, but it occurred very early in a 4-year cycle, as opposed to the final blow-off move that you typically see at the end of a 4-year cycle. We got this very early. So to me, this is more of an impulse-like move, more of a realization that we are in a new 4-year cycle. And I also think that we had, after this really long bear market here, we just had enough accumulation down the bottom here, and essentially sellers had run dry, and there was just a whole bunch of FOMO that just took control, took over, and pushed this market way too far, too quickly. So what does that mean, or what did that mean in the end? It meant that because the pendulum swung way too far here to the upside, too quickly in a short period of time, that there's a lot of backfilling to do, a lot of profit taking, a lot of selling up in this $14,000 range. Once we broke above the $10,000 area, a lot of new sellers came into the market. You really unlocked a whole bunch of sellers from the prior bull market, but also from previous bull markets, and hodlers as well, who probably looked at this big advance and didn't do anything about it and end up holding all the way through. And then maybe they looked at this and said, well, I need to get some off the table right here. So there were a number of different players and different profiles that came in to the market at this area. But essentially we unlocked a wave of new selling. And of course, the buying at that point was all speculative, be above the $10,000 range. So it just was very natural for the market to pull back sharply and to begin to punish all the latecomers that came in from the $10,000 to $14,000 range. It also meant that we needed to consolidate those gains over a more considerable amount of time. It did go higher essentially non-stop from February all the way up to June. So a significant amount of time, a significant amount of price increase, 300 to 400% increase in a short period of time. So it stands to reason then that if the pendulum swings one way, it needs to swing back the other way in an almost equal fashion. So what did we see in exchange? We saw a 45% retracement all the way back down to this candle 2 or 3 weeks ago. And now it looks like we may have found a bottom or some support, and I'll get into that very shortly as well. What's the net effect? Well, the net effect is, if you look at kind of this line here, and I did have multiple lines from previous videos, I'm not trying to predict the absolute price movement of Bitcoin. That's not my goal. My goal is to simply state that a 4-year cycle low is in place. I expect a right translated 4-year cycle, meaning I don't expect the top to occur for 3 years or close to 3 years from this low. Okay. So here it is here, zoomed out. I do not expect the top to occur until the 3-year mark, which is 150 weekly bars, as we saw, and similar to the prior bull market, and then the 52-week decline. We may not go as far right translated, meaning we don't top so far to the right of a 4-year cycle, a 4-year cycle being 200 or 210 weeks. Here's the bear portion of the end of this cycle. So we may even top at around about the 110 mark, which is January of 2021. Point being is that the lines I draw on this chart are mostly just for illustration. They're a guide, they're a trend, they're my expectation of where the cycle is going to move, but how it moves within that during any one time is really up to the market's up to the market's prerogative here. I'm not the one to to call out and predict exactly where it goes. I'm predicting though that we've had the low and that we see the high of the cycle at around about the 110 week to 150 week level. So again, January 2021 to November 2021, still a pretty far off point in the future. And I also predict that this is going to be right translated and have similar like performance to the prior 2 cycles. And the prior 2 cycles, as you know, had 20x moves from the prior breakout point. So if you look at the top of the last bull market here, which was around about the 11 to 1200 area, once it got to that point and it went parabolic, that's a 20x move. 20x move was similar before. So if you look at this prior bull market top around the $20,000 range and you do a 10x to 20x, then obviously you get a price of 200 to 400,000. Now, don't go out, again, this is the disclaimer piece where I say, don't go out and bet everything you have on the fact that some guy on YouTube says it's going to go to 200 or 400. Again, I don't have that knowledge. If I knew with certainty that Bitcoin's going to 200 to 400,000, then I probably wouldn't be doing a YouTube video. Not that I'm earning any money from this, but my point is that I'm here to basically point out how I'm seeing these cycles, what the cycles have done in the past, and therefore kind of extrapolating forward, using also a lot of the technical evidence, using a lot of knowledge from prior bull markets and other asset classes to make the bet essentially that Bitcoin is going to move its way higher over this 4-year cycle and get to a point where it's up into this box. And that box is a sort of prediction on price and time. So if we go kind of to this, let's just call it 100 bar level, okay, and we draw kind of something like this. This is where I believe that Bitcoin will top at some point. So at some point from November of next year to November of 2021. So it's a 1-year window. It's pretty wide. And somewhere between kind of this $45,000 to $300,000, maybe even $400,000. The range is significant. And that's why that's why in my trading strategy, I've outlined certain points of profit taking just to get some of that locked in as it moves higher. But just, kind of setting some expectations, I guess, and just trying to get you to understand that the goal overall has been to get into position early, let everybody else trade all the whips and the ups and the downs and the drawdowns, and let everybody else FOMO in once it hits 20,000. Let's let retail and the media go crazy with all this. And why don't we just sit there with our position, knowing, or at least with a plan that this is a possibility that may come true based on some of the evidence we've seen in the past. and that we stick to that plan. That's really all this is about. And it gets a little difficult sort of repeating that message over and over again. Get a lot of questions on, is this the end of this move? Is it a bottom? Should we sell? Should we add? Again, I really can't make it any clearer. If you want to profit at the end, it means you have to get in early, get in with a reasonable amount of size that works for you from a risk standpoint, and then just basically concentrate on learning how to handle your emotions and handle the swings, handle 45% drawdowns like we saw, because you're going to have to handle 30% drawdowns and more to come in the near future. So another question I get quite a bit is this the low that we just had recently? And are we going to see new lows? Are we going to break below kind of the $6,000 range? And I still get quite a few questions about, is this just sort of a bear trap, a really big, 1 year bear trap of 300-400% gains? As funny as that sounds, I know a lot of people still believe that we're heading down into this $2,000 range and that this is all one big trap. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I would pretty much think that something seriously wrong with Bitcoin if it's going to get anywhere near that level. For me, it'd almost be busted at that point to even consider something like that. And if you think about it, it's kind of telling that we're getting so many people still concerned about the possibility of this moving lower, getting down into this area again. It's what we call disbelief in the new bull market, right? There's this disbelief that this could really be the new bull market that started. People don't want to believe it, and that's because the pain that they suffered from the prior bear market decline is still so raw and still so fresh. And if you consider also the amount of paper gains that most people held, especially in altcoins, all the way up here, and so many of them, as it started to decline right here, essentially held their position like deer in headlights, held here and held here and held here, really had that hope that's just going to come back and keep going, and it didn't, right? And eventually they capitulated, or if they didn't, they capitulated down here. And again, if they didn't and held altcoins, for example, then most of them have even performed to BTC as if they haven't really ended that bear market from kind of the February of 2018 timeframe. So it was painful. It was really painful. I get it. I know, because I get all the emails and the DMs from people, the losses from massive paper gains to I've made so much money to I've lost all that money, I've thrown more in, I've chased the market, I've doubled down, I've tripled down, and then I've puked out at the bottom. Common parabolic-like moves that end this way. And then to compound that, what happened here is that this move here took so many people by surprise. And I know, again, from the evidence of the feedback with people, that so many people did not ride this, found it too difficult to get in after it moved to 5,300. They saw it at 3,300. They gave up their position right here and could not bring themselves around to buying at 5,300 because they felt they were paying a 70% premium from the bottom. And again, classic behavior. And then when it moved higher and moved higher and moved higher, and everybody was talking about how much money they had earned, they got in at around the $10,000 range. And for a little while there, maybe just 2 weeks, it looked great again, right? There were some great paper profits. Some even started leveraging and trading futures up in this $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 range. And again, what happened? Well, a 45% retracement happened. And they've now gotten in late again. They lost all the money here. They lost here again. They missed this move. They got in late. They end up suffering a 45% drawdown and then again puking right at this point right here. And this is what sort of hodling, to me at least, is all about. It's all about taking all of that equation, all that decision making, all of that trading and investing on sort of pure emotion and what everybody else is doing out of the equation. And it lets you sleep at night. And it's a famous saying by JP Morgan, nothing so undermines your financial judgment as the sight of your neighbors getting rich, right? And that's kind of the same thing here with social media and everybody sort of online. when everybody supposedly is making money in alts and Bitcoin, and you're not, you end up chasing at the wrong time when everybody's talking about it. And it's just classic behavior. It happened in 2017, happened on the way down, it happened right here. And many of you right now are probably second guessing yourself and saying, yeah, I've got some position, but I'm waiting. This is going lower. This is going back down. And some people just don't learn the lesson. And the lesson is simply that you're not better than the market. You're not better than 90, 95 or 98% of the traders out there. But where you could be better, than the rest of them, is by embracing the fact that you can't time the market well, and that you're not going to be able to get in and out as well as you think you can. But if you get in early and establish that position with the mindset that here is the goal, this is the window, that you won't take anything sort of before November of 2020, sort of a year out, and you won't take anything kind of before the $40,000 range and above, then then you have a plan, then you have a strategy and a goal, and you can at least set your mind to it and really focus on discipline and create a disciplined strategy to get to that point. And that's really the path. And if you start to say, well, but people making money getting in and out and trading, then you're really, again, missing the picture. Because if you look at the price gains, even from today, right, it's not too late. 9,000 seems rich. It's up from 3,000, and you didn't capture 3,000 like I did, and many of people who watch this channel. But and so you want to make some of that back. But again, this is what you're trying to compete with. Look at these gains, even to the $50,000 range. You're talking about 450% gain, up to this hypothetical top end range, 4,300% gain. I mean, I'm pausing there just for a little effect. 4,300% gain, and here you are, possibly, some of you, talking about you can beat that, thinking you can beat that, and you just can't. You can't beat that. So again, I'm just emphasizing the fact that this is all about the strategy. It's all about playing for this box, playing for the prize up at the top here, still a way out. And if you doubt that, well, look where it's gone already. I mean, it's doing it, right? It's doing what it's done in the past, right? It's doing what it's always done. The 4-year cycle started back there. Now, again, I can't guarantee how it gets to that point, right? Does it go straight up to 60,000 in the next 3 months and then come back down to 30 or 20 and then work its way up? It might. I don't know, right? Does it churn sideways for 6 months below 10,000 and above 8,000? It might. Again, not the point. The point is not to worry about the day-to-day and the week-to-week swings of this, and to focus on that area up the top. So again, what could happen? A lot of things can happen between now and then. I believe, though, that, and I strongly believe, in fact, and again, this shouldn't really matter to most of you, but if you're waiting, I wouldn't wait. I strongly believe that the low we had 3 weeks ago is a low that will never be repeated in Bitcoin's history. That's a big statement to make. And I'm not making it for clout purposes or reasons, because again, it could go lower. It's going to be perfectly fine with me. I'll just wait it out. Okay. I still think we're going up to this box. I'm not going to be shaken out of position, but I do believe though that this move here, and if you look at it from a daily, I don't want to show you a daily chart, but from a daily chart, I find it very significant that we churned here sideways after a breakdown. We made a low. I think it was a bear trap at that point, and then it shot up higher, and I think it's going to start to move higher. I think we go up towards the 10,000 to 11,000 range very soon, but I've got the wrong drawing tool. But then, again, this is somewhat irrelevant. I'm not doing this for clout reasons or for short-term trading reasons. But I think we do spend some time now over the next few months, over the next few 60-day cycles, say into February, kind of struggling to get above this 10 to 11,000 range. But once we get out, then we can begin to make headway up towards testing the $14,000 highs that we had very recently. And at that point, that might provide some significant resistance. And I think at some point before moving above 14,000, we're going to experience yet another shakeout, another big bull market correction, and that could be around sort of 30% or so. So maybe it's at this point, could come sooner, could come later, but maybe it's at this point here, sort of in the April timeframe, that we get up to the $14,000 range and then come back down and correct. So if you look at prior bull markets, we had these corrections of around 20 to 30%, sort of every 4 to 6 months. So maybe something like this up into the April timeframe, where you get this, this kind of 25 to even 30% correction, come back down to 10,000 again, and everybody kind of says, "Well, look at the double top, right? Double top with June. This is it. It's all over, and here's a big move." We break kind of back below $11,000, $10,000 range. So maybe a correction as much as 30% on fast action, and then we move higher again. And then from that point, I think this sort of final accumulation phase will be done, and also the kind of the despair phase and the and despondent sort of phase would be over once we get back above here and people realize that the 30% decline or the shakeout, once it comes back up and actually breaks out and makes new highs, new multi-year highs, in fact, highs not seen since the December or late November or December 2017 timeframe, multi-year highs here, they will realize then that there is no double top. We're at multi-year highs, and this is where it begins, in my opinion, to get interesting. So it's next summer that we start to get really interesting, and I think there's not much, to be honest with you, above 14,000. Yeah, there's a all-time high of 20, but I think the room on the gap between 14 and 20 is just purely sort of psychological at that point. We only have 3 or 4 weeks of really speculative price action in that range. I think we get up there pretty quickly. We get to the $20,000 area, becomes more of a psychological barrier or resistance to price. I think we churn here for a 60-day cycle, and then at some point we break free from that. We start to make new all-time high territory, and then you know where it goes from there, right? Then your grandmother's in, she's calling, the taxi driver and Uber driver is really, he's in as well. He's making a lot of money. He'll be retiring within a year as well. And you know how that goes from there. And the move then, the 10x or 20x move from that all-time high period, normally is pretty quick. It's like a 9-month sort of extension. And I'm expecting the same type of thing to happen. And I'm expecting something just as powerful as the prior one, maybe even more. Maybe this is that generational top in Bitcoin that you're not going to really see for a couple of 4-year cycles. It's possible then that once this 4-year cycle tops, that the next 4-year cycle really disappoints and becomes a left translated bear cycle for 4 years. It's very likely that once we breach 20,000, if we hit the 6-figure range at 100,000 and plus, that the regulators around the world are really going to say, okay, enough's enough. This is out of control, and they're going to come down on it. That won't kill Bitcoin. It won't kill crypto in general, but certainly will put some brakes on it for a while. And I think the next bear market from there can be quite surprising to be, in its length more than anything else. It won't be surprising in price because we've had all other prior bear markets in Bitcoin retrace around 80 to 90%. So it doesn't really get any worse than that. But I think what you're going to find in the next bear market is the severity in terms of time. But that's a subject for down the road. Again, I think what we see here is this big blow off. Big blow off could mean 400, 450, 500. I don't know. I'm not saying that again to get you all excited. Remember, the box. The box here is your friend. That's our target. Get your position. I think it's going up there. But if I'm wrong, that's why, again, I advocate a sensible allocation in relation to your total portfolio, your total wealth. You don't want a situation, for whatever reason, and I can't predict why it would happen or how it would happen. There are scenarios out there, but you don't want to have this happen, okay? all the way down here, and you're holding everything, including a home equity loan, some credit card debt, all in Bitcoin, and here it is here, because you really thought and you were convinced that this was coming and that the reserve currency would be Bitcoin within 3 years. And hey, it didn't happen. And then now, the mortgage you've been paying for 10 years is foreclosed or so forth. Don't do that. And I'm saying that some people are probably laughing. Most of you are probably laughing and saying, well, that's just crazy. But let me tell you, it happens. It happens far too often. It happened in 17. It happens in bull markets in general. People think it's a home run, can't lose situation, and they bet everything. I'm not doing that. I'm betting actually overall something that's going to be very meaningful, but at the same time, it's not going to really significantly hurt me financially in the end. It'll sting like any loss stings, but I'll move on and I'll be fine. So I want you to also be in that position to be fine in the worst case of scenarios. Some of you say, well, I'm 20, I'm 23, I need to make it, right? Well, okay, so if you're young and your assets are small, yeah, okay, you can, so to speak, bet the farm. If your farm is, a patch of grass, 1 foot by 1 foot, and then of course, bet what you want, right? You're risking maybe 6 months of income or something like that. That's really not what this message is geared, who this message is geared for, exactly, at least. So yeah, if you can tolerate some risk, if you can tolerate some losses, by all means do that. But don't tell me that that's your only hope, right? I do hear that quite a bit, that your only hope is that Bitcoin goes to 100 or 200. That's the only way I'm going to make it. That's just a horrible way to look at it. And I'm not here to school anybody, but focus on building your career, focus on building your business, focus on building income, focus on the right, if you want to get into trading and investing, focus on the right lessons and the right strategies, and focus on bringing in income and adding to your income, and building skills and tools to increase that income over time. This is just one asymmetrical opportunity that's going to come across your life. There'll be many others. There'll be many others in Bitcoin too in the future. I can probably tell you that in the next 4-year cycle, the 4-year cycle after that. But there'll be other opportunities in other asset classes throughout your life. So don't view this as a one and out. This is everything I need to bet on, and it's the only hope that I have. And so again, yes, it matters on what age you are and how much you can tolerate, and what dependencies you have and what commitments you have. They all play a factor and play a role. So you need to be responsible, and you need to really pay close attention to what is a reasonable allocation as far as you're concerned. Okay, my friends, I think I'm going to wrap up here. I had around 6 other points I wanted to touch on, but in the interest of time, this video is over 30 minutes already. I'm going to promise to make another video before the sort of typical 1 month schedule that I've been on. I'll try and do one within the next 2 weeks. And I'll focus mostly on the exit strategy for that, and also cover some of the other questions that we had. I'll also cover my update on the multi-sig process. As you know, the 25 BTC, or now 30 BTC, that's in on the portfolio. I've pulled some of that into what's going to be a multi-sig solution, looking at Casa as one possible solution, looking at another solution as well. So I want to be able to update you on my progress there, because my goal there is obviously, one, for some more security of my long-term hold of my Bitcoin, but also I need to put into place some real inheritance-like solutions for the event that obviously something happens to me, that the Bitcoin is not burned and wasted. So I'll have updates on exit strategy, timing for taking profits, getting out, maybe some tax sort of feedback as well, and then again multi-sig, inheritance, and any other questions you've had. I hope you've enjoyed this installment. Again, the message is sit on your hands, get your position, ignore the swings and the corrections. The prize is still a year or so away. If you don't have a position by that time, then you will not at least be part of this journey. You may have a more successful journey or not, I don't know, but it won't be in this journey. Thank you again. I appreciate everything, and I appreciate you sharing this video, liking this video, and until next time, thank you.